Hi, welcome back to the Dylan Rounds case. Today, we're going to be doing a body language analysis of the mother. You may be wondering why. Well, I have previously done it before, like with the Kenny Veach case, and it was quite useful to get an understanding of the situation, the person, and possible outcomes. At the end of the day, sure, you can do an interview with somebody, but there might be biasness going on. There could be some kind of influence, direct or indirect, of the interviewer. The person being interviewed might be reluctant, holds back, not as genuine, something restrained, hold within. And the only way to see that, to maybe almost pull it out, almost like a subliminal message to target through, to penetrate through that shield on the exterior, is by doing a non-participant over observation, okay? How would that even work? Well, so far there's been a few interviews, right? Okay, there's been informal ones with the YouTubers, doing the call-ins, one-on-ones like that. And obviously there is a bit of an audience because the people watching during the live stream, depends how natural that is, obviously. The person being interviewed, such as the mother, could be a bit more relaxed or maybe tense and holding back on certain stuff. But then you've got the other type of interviews, the more formal ones with, I guess, open-ended questions here and there, such as on East Idaho News, that presenter, the interviewer, the way the way he brings up certain questions and then says, is this right? Is there anything else going on? And then they answer the family. And we're going to be basically directly looking at those interviews because they're a bit more formal. There's a certain tone to them and a certain pace, and there's a level of consistency, okay? There's a level of consistency which I've been able to monitor through the 3 different interviews, okay? I've seen how things have progressed from here to the most recent one. So there is a few crossovers with body language and behaviour, but then there is also a few changes along the way. And obviously, changes in behaviour could reveal something about them or the event, the situation, how things are playing out. Like with the Kenny Veach case, there was a lot of changes of behaviour with people who were directly involved or not, whether it be family members or investigators. So the same could be, here. So in terms of the 3 interviews by the East Idaho News channel, unfortunately, I don't think I can show you footage because of copyright and all of that. Things can get very messy, but I can show you a few screenshots. And if you wish to look back on these videos to get a closer understanding, to compare the notes made by me, you can do so. I'll leave a link down below in the description and I guess comment section. So in terms of the first 2 interviews, that was to do with the boots being found and the evidence, Dylan's mother appearing on the show by herself. And then I think it was the one before that, the one where the father of Dylan and the mother appeared, just talking about things in general. Now, in terms of both of those interviews, there was a level of consistency throughout in terms of the behaviour and body language. I know there was a few people bringing up saying the way the father was acting, kind of like in the background, not as talkative maybe, not like the full front of the investigation and the interviews, it's the mother doing all the talking. Well, maybe that's just the case, that's just like how things naturally are, like certain instincts within to do with certain genders maybe, I don't know. Maybe the mother has just more to say or she handles it better than the father. As I said, we're not directly looking at the father in this video, but if you just wanted me to do a quick breakdown of him in terms of what I've seen just from one interview, it's not enough, okay? When Heavy D was talking to Candice, the mother of Dylan, well, I don't know if it's a husband or boyfriend, I don't know if they're married or not, but husband, boyfriend was present, but not the one you see in the East Idaho News because that's Dylan's dad. The boyfriend, husband that appears is not Dylan's dad. In the Heavy D interview, Candice moved on and met somebody else, okay? But in terms of the dad of Dylan, you see in the interview, he's got his arms crossed like that. Now that could create all kinds of ideas, with the arms crossed. Sometimes that could be a form of confidence, but then again, depending on the situation and other factors and variables, crossing the arms could be holding oneself together, holding something within, a little bit nervous, anxious, because of the circumstance and what's happened, what's gone down. It would make sense to feel that way, to be like that. In terms of his face, his eyes, quite straight, quite fixed, maintaining eye contact, like that. He does look at the mother, he looks at his wife or ex-wife when talking. Some people brought that up saying, oh, is it one of those things where when the other person is talking and the other person, like the father, is just monitoring and watching carefully to make sure that Candice doesn't slip up in words or revealing anything, like any secrets.
All the grandma came from the farm area, so we know he was in that area.
You might be wondering, what are you trying to get at? Well, different example, but I think it was Bush, when he was doing some kind of interview and his wife was present, and when they were referring back to 9/11, Bush said he was at some school or something and he was talking about it and stuff, and then at one point he ended up tripping on his words. He said, oh, a conspiracy. He nearly said conspiracy when he was referring to 9/11, and the wife turned around, looked at him dead in the eye. Her eyes, her pupils widened, and obviously after stumbling on those words, he changed them and said something else. You see what I'm saying? And in the actual news programs, that original clip was removed and taken out completely. So even if it was just an accident, slip of the tongue, by purposely taking it out of the interview, the original piece being edited, clearly it was done for other reasons, right? And because of the way the wife reacted at the time, it was like, whoa, be careful what you say. You don't want to reveal any dark secrets, right? You get what I'm saying? Can that translate here with the Dylan Rounds case? Maybe not, but in terms of what other people have said, I guess that's the idea they had during that one interview where the father was arms crossed, staring at the mother while she was talking, making sure she behaves or says the correct words. Maybe that could be one way of looking at it. In terms of the father, how he was speaking, yeah, you could say he was talking in a deep but kind of soft, slow-paced voice, like if someone was relaxed.
And his backhoe was out there and he helped him fill it in and a few things. So, I mean, there was a guy in Montello that was doing some stuff with Dylan as well.
But as said, people react differently to different situations. So, yeah, he didn't really smile much. He didn't, joke around or any kind of lightheartedness from the looks of it, from what I saw. But the mother was not as strict. Okay, so I'll leave it there with the father because there's only so much I can talk about him. Linking back to the mother, the main feature of this video, body language, where should we start? Well, let's talk about eye contact. Eye contact was consistent throughout interview 1 and interview 2 with the East Idaho News Channel. It wasn't a full-on fixed eye thing like that, because I know some people in the past have said, do you do much eye contact? Reality is, probably not. Maybe I'm not good at it, but I'm giving eye contact to you now. Now, in terms of the interview, it wasn't like this, because that wouldn't be natural, right? If you don't give any eye contact, that could be a sign of not being confident, maybe being nervous around many or a certain individual. Could be for, numerous reasons. You might be scared of someone, you might like someone, whatever it may be. And that's normal, that can happen. But then equally, if you've got your eyes fixed on somebody like this, it might be because it might not be the most healthy of reasons. You might be in some kind of trance with somebody. You are in the presence of another person and you make eye contact and then you're constantly staring into their eyes and you're thinking, wow, look at who's present right now. That could be one way. But then another way would be interpreted as maybe you're challenging somebody, by fixing your eyes on something or someone. It's like, or even an animal. It's like that animalistic behavior. Are you challenging someone to a fight or something? It's some form of level of intimidation. You stare into someone's soul, into someone's eyes to make them feel uneasy, uncomfortable, for them to break down. That is a method. So they're the two, one extreme to another. Virtually no eye contact at all, and then a lot of eye contact, which could be a bit suspicious. With Candice, it was in the middle. It was look away whilst talking, and then look back up, or look back to the interviewer and make eye contact. Not too long, not too little, just right. So that consistency of the eye contact, which most other people would do. So there was nothing too dodgy there, okay, in terms of the first interview and the second one. Third one is a little different, but we'll get into that later, okay? Tone of voice. What was her voice like? Well, it wasn't a deep voice. It wasn't a really high-pitched voice. It just seemed like a normal one, just how one would normally speak. And looking back at the Heavy D small interview with Candice, she sounded how she did there.
He's planting, but usually the grandma will hear from him, or I'll hear from him, or his dad will, and somebody will. So
to how she sounded on some of the YouTube call-ins, to how she sounded on the East Idaho News Channel.
And he said he couldn't talk because he had to get his grain truck in the shed because he had seed in it and he was planting, so he couldn't get his seed wet.
Same tone of voice and accent. Said there's consistency there. In terms of the most recent interview, the third one on the East Idaho News Channel, slight difference, but I said we'll get into that later. So when it comes to tone of voice, just in general, can be numerous interpretations. If you have, I don't know if it's a joke, but they said if a certain gender suddenly talks in a high-pitched voice, then they may like you. If they talk in a much deeper voice, it might be the opposite. But then equally, other people might use a certain tone of voice to make a certain impression when around a group or an individual for numerous reasons. Once again, could be a level of intimidation, challenging somebody, trying to outdo one. Could be any kind of reason. You know what I'm saying? There's all things behind it. In terms of someone being suspicious, tone of voice, well, if it was higher pitch than usual and it sounded a little bit more unstable, then it could mean the person's nervous. They could be trying to hide something, or basically failing to hide something because of that presence, that pressure on them, and they're trying to hold something back. There's always that. But in terms of, Dylan Round's mother, Candice, she was just talking fairly normally in terms of her voice. And that might be, which ties on to some other points down below, why people may be suspicious, even though she is appearing and acting normal like anyone else would on a normal day. But this isn't a normal day, going through, I don't know if you call it tragic because it's not been fully confirmed yet, but a bad, negative, sad, worrying event. And she's acting too normal. And I think that's what people are getting at in terms of her behaviour, how she responds, how she appears, doesn't seem quite right. Now, the next observation is to do with the eye once again and the pattern of it when blinking. Now, you can interpret a lot when it comes to eyes, whether it be the pupils dilated, that can reveal something if you're in the presence of someone. But in terms of this situation, we're just talking about the blinking of the eyes. And people have said, if you blink so much in a certain pattern, or if you blink rapidly, I'm not quite sure exactly, it can mean you're lying when responding to something. Now, just to throw that point in quickly, okay, about the lying, I know a few people have said in the comment section about the mother should take some polygraph test, also known as a lie detector test. And that could reveal a lot, but I don't think that will happen whatsoever unless it was done by authorities for some reason. If the authorities catched on and felt suspicious that the family were involved in some way, or the mother herself, then that probably would be the only way they would do a lie detector test, and why she would do it, because she has to. But with the general public, YouTubers, investigators, private ones said, can you take this test for us just to establish stuff, she'd probably get very defensive and say, hell no, I'm not doing that. No, no, no. I know my son. I know the situation. He wouldn't do this. He wouldn't do that. We've done nothing wrong, etc. That's probably the script, how it would go. So I don't think there's really much way of getting her to do one, as a test. So I just thought I'd throw that in because it does link on. So linking back to the eyes, you can't really see the pupils because of the quality and the zoom level, but in terms of interview 1 and 2, she doesn't blink too much. She does blink, obviously. It isn't just direct eye contact and not blinking at all, because if that was the case, then it would seem a bit suspicious. But at the same time, she's not blinking rapidly, so there's no erratic behaviour there. And with looking away here and there, the odd little blink in between, it's like what you'd see in any kind of interaction or, situation between people, informal or formal. So there's that. Things do change though in the third interview, but we will get onto that shortly, okay? So yeah, you've got blinking, not excessively, seems somewhat normal. And as well, it's to do with the questions when answering them. Certain responses at times, you've got to just look out, does anything suddenly change within them? Facially, eyes, mouth, just overall body, anything like that. Does it suddenly change when asked a sensitive question or a certain thing that might trigger them in some way? But it didn't seem to in the interview 1 and interview 2, seemed somewhat calm and kind of relaxed, okay? Now, the next key thing is still body linking on. In interview 1 and 2, as well as the interview with Heavy D, and I guess some of the YouTube call-ins, she is sat pretty still or stood up fairly still, kind of relaxed in terms of the way they're stood, both in informal and formal situations and environments. She does appear relaxed. It's not like them appearing at a formal interview, like a job interview or something, sat there upright with the hands in the appropriate position, appropriate facial expressions, eye contact and everything to show confidence, to show this and that. No, the way she was, it was just like maybe how she would be around like friends or just in a relaxed state. So that didn't seem to change across the board of the different interviews, the different platforms and settings. So there is a level of consistency there, but once again, due to the circumstances and the events that have gone on, some people might be inclined to think, well, the mother seems a bit too relaxed. Why is she not doing this? Why is she not doing that? Why isn't she a mess? Where's all the emotions? That's what some people would probably say. As said, people can react differently at times. If people can laugh when they're at a funeral, and they can't help it, then it would probably explain why Candice is the way she is. Like, it's just the way of her coping at the moment or something, or dealing with stuff. And things can change. There might be a delayed response, delayed emotion that can kick in eventually. And it might make more sense when I explain shortly with the third interview, okay, as I tie it all back together and contrast, okay? So, still body for the most part of it. No rocking backwards or forwards or like this, fairly still, somewhat calm. But then we go on to the body language in terms of the hands and the arms. Now, I can't really show you because not in frame, but if you look at her arms, the drapes down and the kind of that an angle. So basically, when you look at some of the photos, you couldn't see in the third interview because the camera was up here, but in the other two, the camera was zoomed out and her arms were kind of like on her laps or like in between her lap, and the hands were clasped together. Now that can imply a lot from that. And it's associated when someone has their arms out like that on the laps with the hands clasped, it can show that a level of maybe anxiety, nervousness, maybe holding something back, trying to hold oneself together, because you're holding both hands together to try and get a grip, maybe. The current situation is tense, you're trying to keep it together. That's the way you could interpret it. And that could be the overall theme. In terms of how she might sound, how she might appear, look, her stance, for most part of it, might seem calm and relaxed. Her arms and hands are the telling signs of an individual holding it within, trying to keep things together, maybe because of the role she plays, because she being the mother and stuff, trying to keep things together, so things don't collapse, because if she breaks, then maybe everybody else breaks, like a domino effect, possibly. Could also be she's holding on, in a sense of holding on to hope in a visual way. Now you could think, well, how's that? Well, when you look in the third interview, the last one, most recent, she was saying about a homicide, saying about it's not looking good, but then towards the end of the interview saying, we hope he comes back before or during his 20th birthday.
The affidavit that was served to get the warrant on Chase, they listed a homicide investigation.
Dylan's birthday's coming up.
Yes.
20th
20th.
on August 1st. What is that like, knowing that, well, let's hope he's here
Right, yeah.
for his birthday. but-
So that level of hope, even if it's through denial, even if it's down to some kind of defense mechanism, it could just be holding on to hope, trying to not break. So that could explain that, and it would highlight why she's been like this for so long, from start to just recent time or so. So that's worth taking into mind. Anything else? I guess the pace of voice as well. In terms of her voice, I mentioned the tone, but the pace, if someone's talking very quick, they could be nervous. Now, okay, some things might, counter what I've previously said, but I'm just saying this in general, okay? At times, it can be associated, if you talk a little bit too quick, you could be seen as being nervous. Like if you're doing a presentation in school or in a more formal situation, you might talk a bit quick because you want to get it all out there. You want to get it over and done with quick, and then you can run off, walk away, get away from it. That level of nervousness, you just want to get it out the way, so you say it as fast as possible. And that could happen in an interview. You know what I'm saying? Now with Candice, she wasn't talking fast. She was talking somewhat slow.
So I spoke with him on Thursday, and his dad, Justin, spoke with him Thursday. Then his grandmother spoke with him Saturday morning, May 28th.
Now, if you talk very slow, is that a bad thing? Well, to some people, they would say, oh, you're so boring, or oh, you haven't really got much to say, that's not good. But there is a positive behind it, and that's to do with thinking before you speak. Now, and that's like on the spot. So if someone asks you a question during an interview and it takes you a few seconds to reply back, it means you're thinking what you're going to say, which is obviously an important thing. Like the word in the structuring of it, because it shows like you care in a way, you don't want to mess it up. And if it shows like you care, that's a positive trait and a sign within somebody to be that way. If someone was very fast off the mark to respond back, it could highlight they're a bit erratic, maybe a bit passionate, which is kind of a good thing still, but they're not thinking before they speak. They could slip up, they could mess up and reveal something they didn't want to reveal in the first place. So there's different ways around it. In terms of Candice, Dylan's mum, she doesn't talk that fast. Maybe at little intervals, she might raise her voice slightly, her volume, and she might talk just a little bit quicker, but I think that's a level of defensiveness, and we'll link onto that into the next point, okay? But yeah, she talks somewhat slow. There could be a reason behind that, aside from thinking before talking. It could be because she's trying to hold it together, and when someone is upset, they can't always structure words or sentences together coherently. Now she did, but like a lesser symptom of that could be just not able to talk as quickly with the same flow as usual because of that sadness within. You're seeing it more visually and more telling in other cases where someone could be trying to talk, but the lips are wobbling, the eyes are starting to water, and they're stuttering with the voice, which is normal because they're upset. Now, Candice wasn't like that, but I'm just giving you varying forms of it and how it can appear when talking. So yeah, the next one, response to the wild theories and questions. So interview 1, interview 2, mainly interview number 3. That's where you see it more, okay? So when the interviewer brings up certain questions, theories about conspiracies and suspicion, what other people have, the general public, at those moments, the way Candice speaks, her volume changes, slightly increases. At times she kind of smiles, but not in a nice, happy, playful way, but more in a this is ridiculous. You know what I'm saying? Where if someone said, I can't think of an example, but if someone asked you a ridiculous question or a wild conspiracy about you, you may respond like, are you joking? Are you being serious? It could go something like that. Obviously that was more of an extreme, exaggerated example, but it could be just like a little smirk, a little laugh, brush it off, anyway, like that. And I think that's what Candice was like, but she ties it in with her volume of voice and tone, talking a little bit quicker because of that defensiveness within.
The comments, the focus that has come on to, especially me, people can say whatever they want. The people, like I said, that want to follow the circus, they should be ashamed. You are out there pointing fingers about the parents and their past and stuff that's just so ridiculous. Like, I abandoned my kids for 3 years. No. I mean, it's astronomical, the stuff that people come up with. The kids have been back and forth between me and Justin since we got divorced 15 years ago.
Whether it be nature, natural instinct, because she's confident in what she thinks, in what she says. Yes, you can make a counterpoint to that, and we'll throw that in right now, because she might be, or you could say she is, confident at times, maybe in the interviews, or what she believes in, or like especially when she's responding to certain claims and comments, that's when she's most confident on that defensiveness because she knows what's what. But as said, there's been times of misinformation, info changing back and forth, whether it be her, whether it be the family in general. So you got to take that into mind as well. And also you've got to take to mind that sometimes people do get defensive, even if it's against a wild claim or theory, because they might know something other people don't, or they might sense that people are making progress on finding something that shouldn't be uncovered. You know, with the Kenny Veach case, whether it be part of the community or maybe certain family members, when digging for information, digging for evidence, at a certain point in time, certain people were either threatened, maybe intimidated, or some kind of dark energy, some kind of resistance going on, direct, indirect, full on, or in a covert way, to deter people, to throw people off the scent, to put people off. It could be physical, it could be psychological, it could be, what else? Acting as helpful but giving false information to, throw people off the scent, to go off, create all kinds of rabbit holes and cause confusion, clutter, chaos. So then things aren't solved and people are distracted. So there's many different ways of how people can react. And in this case, it was more verbal. And, so with the Kenny Veach case, where certain points mentioned or something's questioned, and instead of just responding back thinking, well, I understand what people are saying, but there is this to take into mind. That wasn't the case with Candice. Candice was like, well, this is ridiculous, man. Like that. I can't do a female southern impression or whatever thing it is, not in the exact mode to do it, okay? But you can see like a little bit of defensiveness, and you can interpret that in a positive way, the mother being confident, knowing where she stands or what she believes in and what she knows. But then you can also take it as a negative, that she might be hiding something, and by being defensive it shows that she's trying to hold something back, and maybe with the body language as well. And in certain areas she's been a bit defensive, trying to hold something within a certain secret, and like with the eye contact as well, trying to keep that somewhat normal, but also making eye contact, say, yes, I'm confident in what I'm saying and you're going to listen. There's all different ways of seeing it, okay? Now let's just start from the top, okay, in terms of the third and final interview. Well, not the final one, but up to now, the most recent one. And things do change. Eye contact, still maintaining eye contact, but looking down more, looking away. And you start to see that right after the first question. And the first question the interviewer asks is to do with the investigation. How's it going? What's happening? And then as soon as she replies and starts saying that there has been developments, investigations are underway and things have been found, but they can't be shared to the public at this moment in time. Now the question is, does she know that stuff, or has she been told things have been found but she doesn't know herself either? That would determine a lot, to be honest. If she does know but she can't reveal it to anyone and it's like a secret between her and the police and the way they're working on the investigation, well, the way she appeared during that interview throughout, her eye contact, looking down like this whilst talking, not looking as much to like the person asking the questions. So there's been a change there compared to the previous interviews, okay? In terms of a tone of voice, a little bit different this time. You know, it's still the same like pitch, but there's a warble to it now, the way she's talking at times. And you see it much later on in the video when a certain question is asked, and, you know, even the facial expressions as well. Certain facial muscles tense, colour tone in the face goes slightly red, eyes become a little watery, you know, like that with the creases. That's just, I guess, through age as well, but you know what I'm saying. And just the voice is a little bit wobbly, like when someone is upset, like I was saying earlier.
How have you all been holding up? I mean, it's been 2 months. There's a lot of nasty commenters, people saying stuff online.
So maybe that question did touch a nerve or did penetrate through that defense mechanism, that defensiveness, that shield built over themselves, over the heart, over the mind, to protect themselves in a way temporarily. But that question pierced through that, so it revealed a more natural, genuine state of her, how she appears. Maybe that question penetrated to a point where it revealed how she appears, how she feels, how she looks inside, and now you're seeing it from the outside as well for a short space of time, as that's taken to mind. But yeah, throughout the interview, her voice was a little bit different, the warble effect in the background of the vocals. So there is that. In terms of the blinking, wasn't rapid, but there was more blinking. But then I guess with eye movement and looking away and moving around, it's natural to blink at the same time. So that could be the reason for increased blinking. The next point, the body wasn't exactly as still as previous, and that's more to do with like the head movement and the eyes, like that, looking around. It wasn't like the whole body or anything like that, but in terms of the head, it was moving around. Maybe I should have thrown this point in earlier, but sometimes when you look at a person's leg, if it starts, what do you call it, shaking, maybe someone rests it on a nerve, you know, like as a bit of a habit, because people can do that. But then other times, if people have got the foot down on the ground and the leg is shaking, there can be symptoms of maybe withdrawal of something, a substance, alcohol. There's that in other cases. But just in general, whether it be linked to that or just in general, as I said, nervousness, being anxious, worrying, being uncomfortable, your legs start shaking, one or the other or both. Couldn't quite see that in the interview. In terms of the first and second interview, she was moving her legs around a bit, but no shaking. The father did shake his leg at one point, but it wasn't throughout, and maybe that was just because he had it resting on a nerve. But you can get an idea of what it can reveal at times. So there is that. It was mainly just the head movement and the eyes that were a bit more active and erratic this time round in the third interview. So there's that. The hands, once again, the hands clasp. Now you couldn't see directly this time because of the camera angle being higher up, as I said, but in terms of the arms, they were at an angle, so it was in the position where they would eventually meet at a certain point, the hands, and it was like in the middle, so it's like on the lap area again as the first two. So that consistency of maybe being a bit nervous, holding things together, trying to at least, as like maybe a coping mechanism, some form of comfort in a way, being held together, just like how someone might wish to be hugged by somebody or wish to hold hands with someone, whether someone they know, someone from afar, distant, and you just wish you were in the presence of them for numerous reasons. So there's that as well. In terms of the pace of the voice, I think that ties in with the tone. She does talk a little bit quicker at times, and I don't think it might be, well, it could be still to do with the defensiveness, yeah. You know, towards the start and halfway through, when those more direct questions of suspicion are asked, and then she responds. So there is that. But then later on, linking onto that question about, I think it was about the witch hunt or the way people treat the mother, and then, as I said, she started getting upset. Her voice was a little bit all over the place in terms of the tone. There wasn't a consistency, so up, down, just like maybe someone's anxiety levels, up, down, lack of control, self-control. But it's understandable to why someone would be like that, because when a bad event does occur, long-term, short-term, present, when it's active, or the long-term effects afterwards, a person can't always think straight, so it means acting out vocally, verbally, or physically maybe. And we previously covered that in terms of the physicality part, where bad event happens, missing the son, worried, shocked, something not used to seeing before. So then she smashes the vehicle, she goes to the trailer to start searching around, might contaminate evidence and ruin that as part of the investigation, but at the time you're not thinking straight, you're not aware of the long-term consequences, and you're just acting at that moment in time, which is natural. And I guess it's the same here with the voice and the verbal aspect. So that was my breakdown, psychological analysis and body language observation of Dylan Round's mother, Candice, just to get an idea of, you know, how she reacts and responds to stuff. Does it reveal anything suspicious about them, or does it highlight, you know, genuinity and naturalness within them? You can leave a comment down below, give your own thoughts, whether it be in the chat, the comment section. What do you think? Do you think she is suspicious, or is she genuine by her responses and actions shown and demonstrated, and maybe other material and other interviews you have watched? Would you agree that there is some kind of consistency established in some way with her body language and her behaviour? Feel free to let me know down below. That's it for now. I hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching, and goodbye.